everybody. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, wave. Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
We got you.
Great. Thank you for joining us today and Uploads Roundtable. If all journalists could please stay muted until I call on you to ask your question, that would be great. Greg, Robbie, and Andy, you can keep the mics open so you can answer everything in real time. Journalists, please click participants at the bottom of your screen where you'll see the raise your hand function. If you don't see that, you might have to click your name and then you would click raise hand. When you click raise hand, I'll know that you have a question and I'll go down the list as I see them coming in one by one and request that you unmute and ask your question as I select to lower your hand. If everybody could wait for everybody to ask at least one question, that would be great. And then if we have some extra time, I'll announce that you can raise your hand again and do any follow-up questions. So at this time, if you can request a question, raise your hand, and I will call on you one by one. We'll start with John Soltz. Please ask your question.
Hi, thank you for the time today.
It taking a couple years was it'll feel like some of the things are, you know, the show mimicking life, where really it was life mimicking the show. And I mean, that's kind of kudos to Greg and the writing team for grounding as much of the sci-fi side in, you know, some semblance of reality or technology that was already out there.
Yeah, I feel like a lot from the beginning to now, the integrity of it actually stayed intact. Like not a lot was sacrificed or changed, you know, for whatever reason. Even a lot of the effects stuff really stayed intact. And the technology that Greg created and introduced in this world, I feel like from beginning to end, like really stayed in there, which is really cool.
The funny thing is, people used, you know, you get used to having to answer questions from the crew. And so they'll say things like, okay, so when someone is uploaded, what happens to their body? And I'll go, oh, well, the headless body is stored on ice so that in the event of clone technology improve, you know, and I'll just answer it as if I have an actual real answer because I've been thinking about it for so long. I mean, obviously the accurate answer is who knows, it's all fiction, but you know, it is funny that when you've been thinking about and imagining something for a long time, you start to really believe that it's got all these rules that you can't break.
Well, what I think is cool though, Greg, is like in the show, a lot of stuff isn't explained. It's like, this is the world, and like you just have to like buy in and jump into it, which I think is really cool. It's not kind of this, it's not upload for dummies. It's like, no, like you're in it and we're living it, and you just have to be along for the ride, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, you don't hold the audience's hand, which is nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Niger, you are next. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My question is for the legendary Greg Daniels. I have got to ask, you know, so you pitched, like you said, you pitched this idea a long time ago as a book, and you've been working on it for about 6 years plus. I would like to know what type of conversations you've had and, you know, the type of confidence you've had working with Amazon and greenlighting this project, and what has that relationship been like?
Well, you know, you would think that, you know, I've done enough where people would just say, here's all this money, just go do it. I mean, that's what I'm always looking for, to be honest. But I guess this was, you know, this wasn't with Amazon originally. When I originally pitched it, I pitched it to Amazon with a lot of other companies, but I actually sold it to HBO, and it was at HBO for a year first, or a year and a half. So I was very happy that after I got it back, when the president of HBO left, Amazon was willing to step up, because it's quite an expensive show. And it's a bit of a departure for me, because, you know, previously with a mockumentary, it's a much cheaper format. And I was also directing this. And so there was like an aspect where I was jumping out of the box that I had been put in, you know, in Hollywood, which is always a slight stretch, you know. So I think that they, you know, one of the reasons why it's taken so long is that they were cautious, and Amazon is a very, you know, cautious company when in terms of making sure that you justify the expense. But the hoops were probably good because, you know, we solved a lot of production problems and, you know, really had the opportunity to do a pilot and then look at the pilot for a long time. Figure out what was good, what was bad. There were certain characters that were not anticipated to be series regulars, but they were so great in the pilot. Like, for instance, Kevin Bigley and Zainab Johnson in the original script. There wasn't any series regulars past Robbie and Andy and Allegra. And but those two popped so well in the pilot that when we started to shoot in Vancouver, you know, they became series regulars. So you learn a lot from doing a pilot. And I think in retrospect, it was all good. And they're very good notes. I got a lot of really good notes from the Amazon team. But yeah, I like the premise of your question though, because it would be a lot nicer if I just was like, here.
Thank you. And next we saw Dewey. If you would like to ask your question, please.
Before I ask, I just wanted to say thank you for giving us one of the best written shows of 2020. I absolutely loved the show from start to finish. But my question stems from just how I appreciate that. How intricate the show is, just the little details in the writing and the designs of the different rooms. I mean, was it a collaborative effort to get to this point? Because I had to watch some of the episodes twice just to catch all the little nuances, ranging from the poster of Kamala and Oprah in the first episode, all the way to even looking up into the light when you're getting scanned. You know, looking up into the light. You know, dealing with those themes of religion, mortality, etc. So, how much of a collaborative effort was getting Upload together for Amazon?
Well, I think TV in general is a collaborative medium, which is one of the reasons why I enjoy it so much. You know, as opposed to like writing a book, I think you get a lot of great ideas from different people. The cast, after the first table read, we sat down all as a group, and everybody was discussing what the implications were, like what would it be really like if this technology existed? What would you care about first? You know, so there was an awful lot of discussions. And then because there was a pilot in Los Angeles and then the series in Vancouver, there was two different sets of crews, which meant 2 production designers, 2 art directors, 2 cinematographers. So there were actually a lot of people bringing ideas to the table, which was great. And some of the things that you're noticing are production design, but also a lot of it goes to what Andy was saying about you're just plunked into this world, and we've thought about all the different aspects of the world, but they may only be in the background. So, for instance, one of the jokes I think I like the best is, we decided what were the technologies in the future that were going to be big. And for instance, drones are big. I mean, in the future, they're big now, but obviously even bigger in the future. We were trying to think of different companies that would use drones. And so we thought of all these different companies. The whole point was to have advertising on the subway scene in the first episode in all of the different things. And so one of the companies was a drone that walks your dog for you. And the tagline is, "Now you can sit and stay." And it has a picture of this drone walking the dog. And that's somewhere in the background. It may not even be on camera. I don't know. But when we were in the subway scene, that was one of the ads along the, along the side of the subway. So it's fun to imagine all these different things. And then, from the standpoint of the writing staff, everybody's pitching all these jokes, and I'm listening to all the jokes, and you can't use every single one of them, but maybe you can use them in the background on a poster or something. So, yeah, thanks for noticing.
I think one of the great things too was, Greg, you created such an awesome world that everybody involved was so excited to kind of bring their take to it. And, everybody had these ideas, and Greg, for, the genius that he is, he's still very collaborative and is really excited to hear what everybody else has to say. From the beginning, the first time we all met and had a table read, at the end of the table read, he asked us, like he said, what we thought it would be like. So, the process, over the couple of years was really great. Everybody, if you had an idea, you tried to get it in there. It was really fun.
Great. Cynthia, CVR, please.
Hi. Thank you for taking the time today. I really love the show. And one of the things that I thought was especially interesting was there's a through line of social commentary, especially about haves and have-nots. That's especially important, I think, in our current circumstances, which obviously you couldn't necessarily have predicted when you started writing the show. Was there an intention to have this strong social commentary about what could happen in the future?
Yeah, it's in there for sure on purpose. It's partly because I think that good science fiction is really talking about the present, and so when you think about some of the problems that society has, income inequality and the unfairness of our society seems to have been getting worse and worse, and so that's a good topic to be writing about. Sorry, that's my dog. I don't know if you can hear it. I don't know what's going on, but then the other thing is that because the sci-fi premise is that when you digitize your brain, a company will provide an afterlife for you. The notion of afterlife has two aspects to me. One, the traditional notion. One is that you're going to be somewhere that's very delightful and pleasurable, and you're going to live forever there. And that's what we're trying to do with this virtual reality Lakeview. And then the other traditional notion is the notion of justice. Like, you're there because you did something good. You were a good person. But when it's only for people who can afford it, there's no fairness to it. And, so to me, that's got to be part of the satire, is that, you're there, but the guy down the hall is, a billionaire who kind of bought his way in, and it's like, that doesn't seem right. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in there. Yeah, I mean, it has to be said.
Thank you. Everybody has now asked their question. So if you would like to ask a question, a follow-up question, please raise your hand again. I see Niger has raised his hand.
Yeah, so my next question is for Andy. I got so much to really say, honestly. First off, I got to say, I'm very surprised we didn't get a full-blown musical performance from you in this show. I had to go back and watch again. I was like, did I miss it? Like, I'm just truly surprised that you have an amazing voice. And I think the fact that you played, like tech support and customer service, like in another world, that's absolutely your job. I know it's not going to pay the Hollywood bucks, but that's your calling. But actually, it might be a good idea. Maybe we pitch that to Amazon and make you the new Alexa. I would be all for that.
Yes.
But I gotta say, like, this has truly been one of your best performances to date. Truly, it showed your versatility, your vulnerability. It just was all over you. Nathan's and Nora's chemistry was out of this world. How was it, you and Robbie's, chemistry working together on this project? It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And I mean, I have to credit it to Greg and the writing and the world he created, because it was so layered, and he gives you so much that you literally just have to like just get out of the way and let it do its thing. And we had talked about Nora being does she sing, and I think that was one of the things we talked about, is like, she's not a full-blown performer. And so that was nice also for me as an artist to kind of and creative to take a departure from that and that thing that I do. But it was nice to also challenge myself and give myself an opportunity to act and really dive into the character of Nora. And the chemistry with Nathan and I mean, working with Robbie it was seamless. Like, we hit it off right away, and it's also such an organic story of them getting to know each other. So I feel like throughout the season, as Nathan and Nora are getting to know each other, Robbie and I also are getting to know each other, but we genuinely just got along right away. I mean, I think of like the chemistry read that we had, and we were hanging out in this back room before we went in together, and we were talking about like, he's from Toronto, so I feel like I made a joke about Canadians being super nice, and we were just talking about Canada, and I think it was right before the election or something, and I was like, oh man, I need to get a Canadian passport. But Robbie's married, so that was out of the question. But instantly we just like hit it off, and I think we really hit the jackpot. And again, I mean, Greg's a master of casting and bringing people together, so I have to credit Greg of like, the cast for this show. We all just get along, and it feels like a family.
Well, you're being very modest. I mean, first of all, Andy has a spirit that shines through the character that you can't fake. And, she's so appealing. So that was one of the things I was looking for sure in casting. And when you have been through months of casting and you've seen the same lines just lie there when people read it and they're not right for the part, it's not just the lines, it's all about who's going to bring the character to life. And it was a very funny process, because Robbie was the very first person who came in to read. And, there was definitely this feeling of, well, that's exactly who Nathan is. And, and he was kind of, but then we were like, well, you can't just go with the very first person who comes in to read. That doesn't seem professional. So we kept looking and looking. And then Andy was the very last person who came in. And so I think it was good, because you could imagine Robbie against a lot of other actors. And then when Andy came in, it was like, oh, this looks good. And then we had an opportunity for them to read together. And it was, it was pretty clear chemistry.
Yeah, I will say Nora just fit like a glove. It just felt so easy to kind of embody her and share her story and her voice. It was one of the funnest wild audition experiences of we just played, and being in the room and working with Greg, it was very much like, let's try this. Oh, let's do this thing. And there was a moment where Greg was like, hey, let's try this one scene. This is the kind of premise of it. Just let's improv it out. Don't worry about the lines or anything like that. And he asked the casting director to sit right next to me. And we're acting out this scene, which ends up being the first scene from the pilot. And we're both watching this movie, and I'm like leaning my head on the casting director, and we're both having this bonding moment, which is, you never do that with a casting director. That's just horrible. It's like against the rules. Do not touch a casting director, look at them, anything. And here I am just, you know, all over Rachel Tanner, who's amazing. But that's kind of the energy from day one. It was just, let's play. We're breaking the rules. We're just having fun. And and I loved it. Yeah, it was wild. I actually counted how long it took from the first audition to getting the job. It was 7 days. It was a week. It was a week,
Oh,
like 8. Yeah.
mine was 2 months.
I'm sorry, Robbie.
Great, thank you. John, I saw your hand next.
Yes, I'm going to go a little off track here. So obviously the series talks about an afterlife and, you know, respecting any religious views you might have, what is your ideal afterlife that you can envision for your own self?
We've talked about this a little bit. There's definitely some parts of Lakeview that I would include in my, you know, in my digital afterlife. The breakfast scene, there was no acting needed. I mean, I walk in and that's the buffet. I am so pumped. The food was incredible. The you know, the production design and the set deck and props that day was spectacular. Everything was amazing. And then if I can golf most days, I'm pretty happy. Other than that, I just want my friends and family to be there.
That's probably, you know, that's probably the most appealing aspect of it is the idea that, you know, if your kids or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren or something like that had a problem and wanted to discuss it, that they would be able to log in and just talk to you. And so to me, that's the appealing thing, whether you were religious or not. That would be a way to keep you know, present for your loved ones. And then whatever, say the computers crash, then we'll see whether there's an actual heaven or what. But you know, you know, you want to sort of stay in this world as long as possible would be a good goal for me.
I love the concept of the afterlife. And I mean, I'm in. I would upload. Mine would be more of like a Caribbean beach somewhere, just beautiful water. I can just relax, have tacos, play my guitar.
You're just on vacation.
Just permanent vacation. But I love the concept of it because then, you know, you get to do all the things that you wanted to do or haven't had time for. And Robbie has made it very clear to me that I could do all those things now. Thank you. Yes. And I am working on my French now that I have the time. But I want to learn 4 other languages. And so it'd be great if I could just code that in and not actually go through the work of practicing.
Thanks. Cynthia, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. So Robbie, you have done a lot of genre shows at this point. And I guess this one is sci-fi as well, but there are a lot of comedic elements to it as well. What about this project felt different to you?
I mean, I love sci-fi, but I also love comedy. So, I mean, once I saw the script for Upload, it was kind of like best of both worlds. I actually kind of got my start in comedy, even though it was a kids show on Nickelodeon. I did a show called True Jackson, and the writers all came from network television. Andy Gordon, who created the show because he wanted something his kids could watch, but he came from Frasier and Back to You. And our director, Gary Halverson, had done like 50 episodes of Friends and 2.5 Men. So that's where I kind of learned my timing and my beats, and I loved it so much. And then, you know, the CW stuff was definitely more sci-fi melodrama sort of. But again, you know, I just kept learning and having fun. And then I was really lucky in my career. I've worked with some really funny people like Eugene Levy and Steve Martin in the first thing I ever did, Cheaper by the Dozen 2. Bo Burnham, who I think is one of the funniest people on the planet. Josh Gad. And so I really wanted a comedy leading up to Upload. I actually said to my agents a couple months before, I said, I would really love a half-hour comedy on a streaming network for a great producer. And I
Two
get
out
the
of three.
audition.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
And I get the audition, and I was like, this is amazing. Greg, I'm a huge fan of Parks and Recreation and The Office. And I went in and I sat with Greg, and he said, let's just chat for a second. My daughter and I watched The Duff. I think you're really funny. And I think you'd be great as Nathan. And I was like, I'm a huge fan of yours. I think you're really funny. And we started doing the scenes, and I've always found that the easier something is to memorize, the better the writing is. And with Greg, the scenes for Nathan, I picked up in, I read them once or twice. And then, so we did the 3 scenes, and he said, I want you to read something from the next episode. And then he's like, I want you to read something from another episode and another episode. And Greg had a few episodes written. I read 1, 2, and 3 before I auditioned. And he had a couple more written that he pulled some scenes from. And cold reads are a nightmare, especially in an audition process, because, you haven't had time to really break them down and find the beats that you want to hit. And it wasn't like that with these scenes. The way Greg writes really feels natural to the way that I speak and to my sense of humor. So it was just, it felt so right and felt like such a great fit from the beginning. So I really just kind of hit the lottery in the people that I was working with and the material that I was given.
Thanks. I think we have time for one last quick question from Dewey, please.
There's so many historical scenes in the show. Personally, my favorite is how Nathan interacted with the gum person and got frustrated every time the worker at Lakeview would split up, and of course you got the pee scene, which had me in stitches as well. So my question to you is, what was your favorite scene for everybody? Your favorite scene in the whole series?
Oh man. I have favorite scenes for different reasons. My favorite scene in the pilot was definitely the peeing scene. When I read it, I thought it was hilarious. We shot that scene. We probably have 20 minutes of footage. Greg, myself, Owen, who's actually Greg's son, who plays AI Man, who is also a writer on the show and is hysterical. We just kind of thought up as many silly things as we could, and
Nora sing together. But what was cool too is since Nora exists in these 2 worlds, I got to do scenes twice and different ways. And so you see it one way in Lakeview, and then it cuts to me in the office, and it's a whole different, I'm just living my best life.
You can't not smile when you're dancing in the office. When I rewatched it with Natalia and her mom before our interviews, just to get a refresher, all 3 of us were sitting just stupid smiles watching you dance in the office. It's so charming.
I love that. It was a blast to shoot. So that was a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you guys so much for participating in our roundtable junket today and speaking with the Upload cast and Greg. Thanks.
Thanks so much,
guys.
Thank you guys.